Hi everyone, welcome to my lecture on human physiology. Today I'm going to continue on my lecture 10, cardiovascular physiology, the second part, the vascular system. We're going to talk about the blood vessels and blood pressure and its control. Before we get into the vascular system, let's have a brief introduction of the hemodynamics or fluid dynamics. That's physics. This also applies to pulmonary physiology. The flow of the air and flow of the blood have similarities. The flow of fluid is according to pressure difference. So in the vascular system, we call it hydrostatic pressure. It's the pressure exerted by fluid. The flow of blood between 2 points from point A to point B is determined by the pressure difference, not by the absolute number of the pressure, but by the difference between the 2 points. So, give you an example, no matter what the original pressure value of P1 and P2, in this case 110, so the difference is 90 millimeter mercury, the unit of pressure. And the second case is 500 and 410. And although it's about 5 times higher, the pressure, but the difference is still the same, 90 millimeter mercury. So the flow rate between these two cases is the same. And what about resistance? Resistance is directly proportionate to the length of the tube. Of course, the longer the tube, you have to flow longer distance, so the resistance will be higher. And the other one is inherent to the fluid. That's called the viscosity. So for vascular systems, in most cases, the viscosity of the blood is the same. If you drink less water, the blood will become more dense. So the blood may be more viscous. But in normal cases, the viscosity stays about the same. And so as the length of the blood vessels. The length and viscosity, although it's the determining factor of resistance, but not the real factors that can affect the blood flow that much. The one that affects mostly is the diameter of a blood vessel or diameter of any tube. Why is that? Because the resistance is inversely proportional to the force power of the structure's radius, the half of diameter. If you increase the radius by 2, the resistance becomes 1/16. Okay, that's the force power. The equation is kind of similar. Number 8 is a constant. L means the length, and that Greek letter is the fluid viscosity, and the pi is the constants, and the R, radius, inversely proportional to the force power of radius. A little vasodilation or vasoconstriction will change the resistance to blood flow significantly. Give you one example. There are one fluid reservoir. They have 2 outlets, and one outlet, the radius is double of the second one. The flow is 16 times more than the smaller one, because increase the radius by the factor of 2, the resistance will decrease 1/16. So the flow will increase 16 times. So that's why our blood vessel decrease a little bit, the resistance will increase significantly. Or a little vasodilation, the resistance will decrease significantly. Okay, now we formally introduce the vascular system. The vascular system starts with arteries. Aorta. Aorta is the biggest artery, and then it branches into different arteries that supply all the organs, all the tissues of the body. From biggest artery to big artery to smaller artery. The arteries, they are big, they are very elastic, so they have low resistance and they can store pressure. We call them pressure reservoir. And then to the smallest artery, we call the arterial. The arterial is the end of the artery. It's very thin. One's in there, and also they have smooth muscle surrounded. And for arterioles, they are the major sites of resistance. They're small, but when they constrict a little bit more, they will increase the resistance quite significantly. The other hand is they have many in number. And then the last one is capillary. The capillary is between the arterial system and the venous system, and it's not visible under our naked eyes. So that is why the capillary is the last blood vessel to be discovered in the 16th, 17th century, only after the microscope was invented. So the capillary is the site for exchange of nutrients and metabolic wastes. And then from capillaries, they empty into smallest venous system that's called a venule. From venule to smaller veins, and they join together into bigger veins, and at last, the superior and inferior vena cava, and brings all the blood back into the right side of the heart. This figure lets you see the biggest artery and the biggest vein, they are almost the same size. But if you look inside, the vessel wall in the artery is much thicker and much thinner in the veins. So the diameter of the lumen in the veins is much larger than the artery. So the artery have many layers of smooth muscles, and also in between, they have many layers of the elastic tissue. So that makes the arteries very elastic. It can store a lot of pressure. That's its main function. And then we take a look at the arterial. That's the smallest artery with one layer of smooth muscles. Capillary, this is only one single layer of endothelial cells. There's one universal structure of all vascular systems, even from the heart. We talk about that. The heart, we have pericardium, we have myocardium. Inner lining is called endothelium. And this endothelium cell extended all the way through all vascular systems. It's a smooth, single-celled layer of endothelial cells, which lines the inner surface of all the blood vessels. And for capillaries, they have nothing but just the endothelial cells. There are many endothelial cells lying together and form a tube. For the other arterial, for the venule, for the veins, they have additional layers of connective tissues and smooth muscle cells. And the endothelial cells, they have a large number of active functions. We will talk about that later on.